Hello, listeners. Today we have our third guest on the episode, which we're very excited about. Today we have with us Sharon from the BED Post blog. She is a poet, a blogger, a speaker, and she's an expert by experience. She was diagnosed with binge eating disorder in 2013 after living with binge eating disorder for over 30 years. She runs an Instagram account and a blog online called the BED Post blog. And she has also done a lot of speaking on podcasts, such as the Full of Beans podcast and the All Bodies Recovery podcast. She has spoke at the Dump the Scales March, and she's also contributed to the ED-MD 2024 conference and contributed to a recovery book by Janet Treasure called Eating Disorders, The Basics. So Sharon brings with her lots and lots of experience and lots of activism. And Sharon also lives in a plus-size body, and that's something that we wanted to bring to this podcast episode because me and Katy are particularly aware that we live in straight-sized bodies. So our experiences of binge eating and recovery may look different. So we wanted to make sure that we showcased another perspective in today's episode. Hello, Sharon.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you for having me.
Did I manage to capture everything that you do at the beginning? Because there's a lot that you do, right?
It's incredible. It certainly sounds like it.
Wow.
Yeah. It didn't feel like it at the time when I was doing all this stuff. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Wow. Sometimes in this kind of work, you don't realize you're doing so much until you hear it back like that. And you think, gosh, yeah, I've actually contributed a lot here.
Yeah, seems like a house.
So I guess, where do people want to start on today's episode? Kate, do you have anything that you want to ask straight off the bat?
I would really, if it's okay with you, Sharon, I'd really like to hear more about your story, how you got to where you are today, doing all of the incredible work that you have done and continue to do. Sort of a background of your history with disordered eating so that we can sort of start to get a bigger picture, if that's okay.
Yeah, it started really when I was a small kid, still in primary school. I started using binge eating as a way just to deal with difficult emotions, stuff that was going on at home. And that gradually morphed into something that got bigger and bigger, especially after I left home and went to university and I didn't have somebody having control over the way that I ate. You're looking like you can.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what that's like. So basically, the symptoms were including binging, but also I did have episodes of purging and episodes of restriction, and that they all feed into each other. So my life was basically lived in that disordered way of going from one type of eating to another. But generally, the eating pattern was start the day, promising myself I wasn't going to eat that day, get so far through the day, eat one thing, eat everything in the house. And that was pretty much a pattern of eating, more or less, with changes depending on whether I was using alcohol to control my feelings, depending what medication I happened to be on, that changed my eating at certain points. And yeah, depending on where I was emotionally. But that was a general pattern. So my life was basically just living in that cycle of very disordered eating, preoccupation with my size, my weight, my looks, preoccupation with keeping my emotions under control, which was very much a driver for me. And that continued right up until I was diagnosed in my 40s. So it was a pattern I started with as a child. As I look back, I think it would have been around 8 years old or so. In primary school, late primary school, and that continued all the way through my adulthood until I was diagnosed in my early 40s. Continued a little bit further as I went through treatments, and then gradually, probably about 3 years ago now, I think, was when I realized that I was no longer binging the way that I used to. And those thoughts weren't there anymore. They weren't completely taking over all of my brain space.
So really, all you've ever known is disordered eating.
Yeah.
Wow. At what age did you start to realize, okay, there's something not right here? Was that quite early on? Did you recognize that your behaviors around food were different?
I think I knew. When I really knew, when I really had that oh moment, was when there started to be the publicity around Princess Diana's bulimia.
Okay.
The power of sharing our experiences.
Yeah.
What was that like for you to see that and think, oh, actually, hang on?
It was, wow, I'm not the only person in the world who does this.
Yeah.
Because you know how secretive and shameful it feels when you're binging, and especially with my family's attitude around food as well. I very much grew up in diet culture. It really was that I was the only person on the planet doing this. I discovered this thing and nobody else had any issues around food the way that I did. Certainly my friends didn't. And so it was very much okay, this is actually a thing. But this really highlights how any publicity around eating disorders needs to be handled sensitively. That was when I learned that purging was a thing.
Really?
And I hadn't even thought about that. That hadn't been an option. And then suddenly, oh, okay, that's something else that I could try then. And it actually planted that seed in my head. And I can't remember whether it was directly after that, but I remember that stuck in my head. And by the time that I did go to university, that was when I started purging. I definitely started purging around the time I was 18. I'm not sure. I can't remember whether it was before then or not.
Yeah. That really hits a chord with me because my eating disorder developed with bulimia. And when I look back at some moments from my childhood where I saw certain influential people in my life purging, not in the sense that they had an eating disorder, but I can see now how that planted a seed for me as well in a similar way that you're talking about. It's quite powerful how just that one kind of exposure can have such an influence on someone. I'm also curious, as you said, that when you saw the kind of publicity around Princess Diana, that was a aha moment for you. Obviously, Princess Diana was in a thin body, wasn't she? So I'm wondering, throughout your experiences, have you always been fat or in a plus size body, or has that changed throughout your experiences with an eating disorder? And then seeing someone in the publicity who is talking about that, but in a smaller body, how did that have an impact on you?
I was always bigger than my friends. Pretty big bones. I know people say that, oh, you're just big bone, but I am. I have spent my life, depending on symptoms, whether I was actively trying really hard to lose weight or not. As a child, I was generally around, putting numbers on it, I know, not good, but I was the upper end of straight size, around a 14, 16. And that was my yo-yoing between that size, the upper end of straight size, and very much into what we call a mid plus size body. So anything between a 20, 26, because plus sizes are all over the place. So I would yo-yo between those two. Yeah. I was never the same size for more than a year or two at a time. I was constantly just going up or going down.
Yeah.
And that is one of the greatest things about recovery for me, is the fact that I've got this wardrobe that I'm curating. Because I've got stuff from 5 years ago that still fits me. And I'm finally starting to get out of that mindset of, oh, it's a new season, I need to buy new clothes, because I'm not the same size that I was this time last year.
Yeah.
That was very much my experience of constantly changing weight, constantly yo-yoing.
That feels like such a, like that room, like a real visual, tangible way of, I've accepted my body, I've accepted my size, because there isn't that kind of, is this going to fit anymore, or do I need to buy something new? That kind of heightened, stressful energy around it. It feels really peaceful, what you're saying there. My wardrobe just fits all the time now.
I still mourn clothes that I got rid of. Especially because I would always throw out the fat clothes, because that's what you do, isn't it? That's what society teaches you. Never going back there again. You're going to be thin for the rest of your life. I knew nothing about how diets worked at that point in time. So I got this memory of this beautiful faux fur coat that I had, that I threw out when I lost the weight. And it was beautiful. And I will never have that coat ever again. And it's just lost to me, because when you lose the weight, you just get rid. And yeah, I know it's crazy, but I've always loved clothes. I've always loved fashion. That's one of my big passions. And yeah, I do. I mourn some of those clothes I lost to the yo-yoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I definitely relate to that. And I think a lot of our listeners will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, as you say, you were always like bigger than your peers. What kind of, and obviously we grew up in a diet culture society. Me and Katy have spoken on the podcast about how that has played a role in our experiences of developing an eating disorder. Because I think fat phobia, it affects everyone. It affects everyone on different levels in different ways, absolutely. But I can speak from my experience. Like, I grew up being told that being fat is bad. And it was something that I was very aware that I need to avoid that. And that played a role in developing some of the eating behaviors I had, obviously how I viewed my body. But that's a very different experience to being in a thin or a straight size body and fearing that happening, and what you would experience if you were in a larger body, to being in a larger body and hearing that and living in it. So what kind of messaging did you receive, like, growing up, and how did you see that playing a role for you?
The messaging that I received was that I'm too big. And that wasn't something that I learned later on when I hit my teens. That's something where I don't remember a time when I didn't believe I was too big. So right back as far as my memory goes, I believed I was too big and I needed to be smaller. And I even have this memory where I thought that I was on a diet when I was 5. I wasn't allowed school meals. I had to have a packed lunch. I wasn't allowed school meals. And you can see the expressions on your faces, but this is the reality of growing up as a bigger kid. Everybody is telling you, the doctor is telling you, your parents are telling you. And now you've got the whole social media, which wasn't around, and it's going back to the late 70s. And even then, it was very much, yeah, you need to lose weight, you're big. I have very clear memories of those school science lessons where you have to weigh yourself and put yourself on a chart compared to your peers. And there was myself and a boy in my class where we had to add on 3 extra categories, weight categories, to be able to put the 2 of us on the chart, because we were so far over the weights that we were supposed to be, in quotation marks.
Yeah.
And I very clearly remember that. Obviously, I was already in that eating disorder mindset and to go through that as a child, a teenager, knowing that I was the heaviest girl in my class, so heavy that we had to add on extra categories. But that was the way it was. I went through puberty early as well, which didn't help because obviously that increases weight. So yeah, I have very clear memories of that. All through my life, it's just been that constant of you need to lose weight, unless I was at my very lowest when everybody congratulated me. Even when one of those times I was at my lowest because I was literally suicidal, still there was always that praise every time my weight went down. And that those comments about how I needed to lose weight when I was heavier. And that has continued into recovery, and that is really difficult to deal with. My biggest relapse after treatment was due to a hospital consultant, white Sharon.
Yeah.
When I was trying to get myself diagnosed with fibromyalgia, didn't know what was wrong with me, and he spent the whole appointment just making comment after comment. I had specifically asked not to know my weight when I was weighed prior to the appointment. That was put in the letter. And I had obviously gained weight in recovery because I was no longer restricting. So that actually, my biggest relapse since treatment was caused by weight shaming by a medical professional.
I really do want to speak more about your experience with weight stigma, especially in the process of getting your diagnosis for binge eating disorder. But I also really want to speak to what you've just talked about, I think you commented on me and Becca both reacting to your story. My whole body was reacting,
Yeah.
because just the fact that at such a young age and you've carried throughout your whole life, I don't want to put words into your mouth, so by all means, please correct me, but to really be receiving this messaging that there's something wrong with you and you have to do something about it, to really only ever know that is just heartbreaking. And I guess it makes sense that you speak of the emotional side. You mentioned at the beginning the emotional side of eating, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm sure it's all interlinked for you. And it's just astonishing to continue to hear these stories of this messaging and the impact that that's had on you. It's really powerful to hear you speak of it, because I know that so many other people will share your experience. And it's just, you got me in the feels, Sharon.
Yeah, it got me in the feels as well. I could feel my goose pimples across my body, but not in a good way, but in that, gosh, there's just so much emotion here to hear that, because what I was hearing is it's not feeling accepted. And then when you hear stories like that, it makes me think of course, this eating pattern developed, because actually it was a survival thing. You were trying to be accepted, trying to belong somewhere, or it's how it felt for me anyway. I don't know if that's how it felt for you, Sharon. But these things don't develop. They develop in a way that actually is trying to be protective or helpful, and then it morphs into something else. Did it feel like that for you, Sharon?
It very much was. It wasn't just about weight, because eating disorders never are they. But that was a big thing about it. The fact that my body was wrong. There was something definitely wrong with my body. And there was definitely something wrong with my sweet tooth as well.
Yeah. Katy's going to relate to that because she has a real strong sweet tooth.
I still do.
I'm a savoury person.
Yeah, I am sweet tooth all the way, Sharon. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sugar's bad, isn't it?
I know.
That's what your family tells you, all the adults around you. You know, come on, go and eat something savoury and healthy. Yeah, full of vitamins. And when all you really want is a massive bowl of ice cream or a piece of chocolate. And And that was a constant message. And I think some of it might have been about that control of sticking two fingers up to my mom and
Rebel.
no, I want to eat sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that through your recovery, you gained weight, and because obviously the restriction wasn't there anymore. I relate to that. I experienced that. I gained weight through recovery, and so did you as well, didn't you, Katie?
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that experience was different because when I gained weight, that was internally, I found that quite difficult to navigate. How does this feel? My body changing and what I was perceiving that meant about me. And however, my body wasn't changing in a way that would have been classed as like socially unacceptable. And certain people who were close to me were actually celebrating that weight gain for me. Whereas I'm wondering for you in terms of gaining weight through recovery, like how that felt in terms of how was that received by yourself, but also about like, people around you.
That is something Katie asked about earlier, wasn't it? The diagnosis. I was diagnosed at my lowest weight.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was right at the bottom of the yo-yo. It was at that time where I was coming out feeling suicidal. I was on medication that did cause weight loss for me. It's a medication that doesn't usually cause weight loss. And I won't say what it is because I don't want to give people ideas. But yeah, due to the depression, my binging always was very much dampened down when I had full on depression, because when you've got depression, you're not feeling anything. So you don't need to control the emotions because you're not having any. And that's the way I always see it.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of what is that diagnosis, the fact that I had lost so much weight during that period when I wasn't feeling any emotions. And so for me, I started treatment right at the bottom of the cycle, at my lowest. And of course, as we all know how dieting and restriction works, my recovery meant that I went back up to my normal weight when I'm not restricting, which is plus size.
Yeah.
So I gradually had to go up those 5 dress sizes, absolutely massive gain, which was fairly gradual because my recovery did also involve coming off the medication that I'd been on. It also involved stopping smoking. I stopped smoking very soon after treatment. Wouldn't recommend it. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like that. I quit smoking during recovery as well. I'm going all in here.
We just do it all.
Yes, this is wonderful. I've got rid of one bad habit. Let's get rid of them all immediately.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Well,
You know, as you were speaking there about when you were at your lowest weight, you got, even though you were suicidal, you still got like praise and lots of compliments on your body. I'm thinking that must have been such a difficult time for you because on the one hand, you're getting all this praise from people. And then on the other hand, you've now just got a diagnosis for an eating disorder and told, okay, this is what's going on for you. Like, what a conflicting kind of time, different messages to receive there. Gosh. But I'm also quite interested in, because you got your diagnosis in 2013, didn't you? Which is when binge eating disorder actually became recognized as an eating disorder. So if you think you lived with this for over 30 years and actually there wasn't even a name for it for a lot of that time, like medical professionals didn't even recognize it. Do you think that played a role at all with it being such like a newly recognized eating disorder?
oh, definitely. I think it was right time, right place.
Yeah.
I am convinced that my new GP, I'd recently moved, and I'm sure that my new GP had some communication from our local eating disorder service, because he told me at that appointment, I think you have binge eating disorder. And our local binge eating service is just about to start some group treatment the binge eating disorder and I would like to refer you.
Wow.
So he'd either received an email or just had some training, but he knew because somebody had just told him that bit of information and he did refer me and I was in that first group.
So how did you feel after that
Oh.
appointment?
I think overwhelmed,
Mm.
relieved, sad, because it's not like I hadn't tried before. I'd been to doctors before and said, look, I have this issue. When I start eating, I can't stop.
Yeah.
And I got the usual diet advice because usually I was in a bigger body. And even when I was in a smaller body, I was still regarded as too big because I was the upper size, the straight side. So it was just this, oh, wow, okay. Somebody believed me. Somebody actually thinks there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And I might actually finally be able to stop. And after spending all that time, just without help, without support, just struggling along alone, not telling anybody, nobody in my life knew. I kept it from my husband, my partner after that. I kept it from my birth family. Nobody knew. I hadn't told anybody. I hadn't told my friends. Nobody knew what I was doing in secret because it was too shameful. And then finally, I'd opened up and I'd told this GP and he wanted to help.
Did that feel very validating for you?
It really was. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was.
And that really speaks to the power of actually like health professional having training in eating disorders and awareness in it. Dr. Joshua Walwich talks about this a lot, doesn't he? About the lack of training that people actually have and advocates for more. Because there is so many GPs out there that actually don't really have any training in eating disorders. So that's really nice to hear that in that situation, that person had training and was able to support you how you needed, because it made the world a difference. Because you then went on to have quite a lot of different treatments, didn't you? You got the full works, and
I did.
and that I'm assuming has played a huge role in your recovery and where you are now. Whereas if that GP hadn't had that training, could have been just another experience of you going to the GP, being told that there's something wrong with you. That could have been really pathologizing. Do you know what I mean? And shaming, and it wasn't. It's just, oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that experience.
No, and there are good professionals out there. And what you say about the training, it's true. I think it's an hour.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and you're in medical school, you'll get an hour of training. And that's why I participated in EDMD, which was specifically for medical students. Because Dr. Chuck's organised that and he's very much into this. All medical professionals need to be aware of eating disorders and how they present.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that's especially important for patients who are not in that stereotypical 6% who are underweight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Which
anybody,
actually is a lot of us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, the majority of people who have eating disorders and not quote unquote underweight by the BMI standards.
I have this such vivid memory of being in the doctor's office with my mother, and I was probably about 15 at the time, and they weighed me, and I had all the other criteria for anorexia, but he turned around to me and he said, her BMI isn't underweight yet, so come back in 6 weeks and we'll weigh her again.
yeah,
I remember my mum saying,
Mhm.
right, so you want me to take her home and get worse and then bring her back? Is that what we're saying? Like, it was very textbook, and there is a very small percentage, as Becca said, that actually fit all that criteria.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's 6%. 6%. So 94% of people with eating disorders don't fit that BMI criteria.
And as a result, probably wouldn't seek help.
Because let's face it, I didn't think I was sick enough to need full-on treatment. Did you?
No, you never do you?
See, this is interesting because my experience is slightly different because my eating disorder developed first with bulimia. And I think that was something that played a huge role in me recognizing it was an eating disorder and medical professionals recognizing it was an eating disorder too, because there was the purging aspect. Whereas I wasn't underweight by the BMI standard. So if I had gone in with restrictive eating disorder or binging, it may not have been recognized if I'd just gone in with that. But I think because there was the purging, that for some reason it was like, okay, if you're purging, if you're actually self-induced vomiting here, then there must be something going on. So it was recognized more. But actually, if you don't have the purging, which lots of people don't, then I think it's easier for things to be overlooked and weight to be used more as a barometer.
Yeah.
Being diagnosed with bulimia didn't particularly lead to a fruitful kind of treatment, but that's a whole other story. It was recognized.
Yeah, at least they recognised that you had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And that's the first hurdle, isn't it?
Yeah. I would be really interested to hear about your experience then in recovery. Once you saw this GP and he referred you to treatment, you know, what happened from there for you?
So I was invited in to see the eating disorder service for an assessment. And they asked me lots of questions that every part of me screamed, don't answer, because they were very personal and very shameful to answer. But I answered them truthfully. And at the end of the assessment, they said, yes, we think you have binge eating disorder. We have group therapy starting in a few weeks' time. Would you like a place? And I said, yes, please. And there was even a conversation about the fact that my body was smaller than the other participants at that moment in time, because they anticipated that might be an issue.
Okay.
Which I think that was really good. That showed a lot of knowledge around how people see their bodies. So yeah,
What a
that
whole new perception for you as well. Sorry to interrupt there. I was like, what a whole new perception to grow up thinking like I'm bigger, there's something wrong with me, I'm bigger than everyone. And then to get this diagnosis and have someone saying, so you're going to be one of the smaller one, like in a smaller body than other people. And that may impact, that's such a like a shift, right?
Yeah, obviously these days I think it's sort of about the same size as the other people in that group, but it was just where I was in my life at that particular moment in time. But yeah, they anticipated and they headed off that problem before I walked into the room, which I felt was just amazing. It was like, okay, they get it. I think I really want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a way it could be seen as that's a strange comment to make. But for me, it was very much I know that you are going to be hyper aware of your body in that situation, and that others may be hyper aware too. And I get it. And I jumped at that opportunity. I really did. And that was it.
Yeah. How was that for you to go from carrying this secret around with you your whole life, saying your husband didn't know, the family didn't know, nobody knew because it felt so shameful, to then be put in a context where actually you with other people who are experiencing it and the point is sharing? That's like a really new kind of thing for you.
It was, to be in that room with all these other people who got it was, I can't even explain it.
It does some sort of healing, doesn't it? I think for me, it heals a part of you that felt hidden for so long.
Yeah, it reduced that shame.
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter what I said in that room. I mean, yes, some of the things we said to each other were triggering, but we all got it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be repeated outside that room. So it was that first step to actually admitting what the problem was and being able to talk about how your mind worked, how your eating habits were, and not be judged. Because I suppose that was part of it for me, was that the shame was around that fear of being judged. Because as women, and especially myself as a bigger woman, there's that constant of being judged on the way that you look, judged for everything you do. It's, women can't do anything right, can they? And
Nope.
this is not to discount all of the men and people of other genders who have eating disorders, but I can only speak to my experience as a female and female presenting. It's always there, that judgment. And in that room, there wasn't.
Yeah.
And
Really
that really
powerful.
did help to break down that shame, break down that guilt. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone in it.
Yeah. Wow. And look at you now, like you're on podcasts, you're speaking at events, contributing to like research, everything. It's amazing. I'm wondering for you, like going from that place of this is the first time you've ever been in a place where people get it and you can speak openly about it, to where you are now, obviously very open about your experiences. How did that experience of being in that group then lead to where you are now? Was there like a cascade effect? Did you then start to open up to friends or family, or was that still quite secret for you for a while?
No, I think it was a cascade, a gradual thing, opening up to one person at a time. At the point where I was diagnosed, I had pretty much had a nervous breakdown, in quotation marks. I had severe anxiety and depression. I had lost a lot of things in my life, my relationship, my home, my job, all at the same time. And I had moved to a new place to start a new job. And because I started and I was starting again, and I wasn't well yet, I had to be more open about my mental health. And that meant that I had to tell my bosses, I had to have that pre-work assessment before I could start work. And then I started being more open with my colleagues. And the impact of being more open about my anxiety and depression, both on myself, I felt like I was being more true to myself, but also to the people I opened up to. And some of the people I opened up to shared a little bit of their story, which was a massive privilege that they felt that they could trust me enough to do that. That led into me wanting to get into that more. So I joined the Time to Change movement. Then when they started opening up local Time to Change hubs, I joined that. And so all of this was happening as I was getting diagnosed and start to go through treatments. And it just, gradually, like a snowball getting bigger and bigger, morphed into doing some work with Beat before they did their eating disorder week on binge eating disorder. So I did some work with them on that. And then lockdown. And I was bored. I started to blush.
Amazing. That's when I started my Instagram account during lockdown as well.
Yeah, I think we were pretty much within a couple of weeks of each other, weren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was the story. It just gradually got bigger and bigger and out of control until suddenly I was speaking on these national programs and had this blog and showed my face on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Like a full circle moment for you.
Yeah. This is giving
Really?
me the feels in the opposite way now. Oh,
We're like rooting for you. Like this, we're like reclaiming for you, as you said, like really this finding your authentic side, really.
Yeah. And it feels like it's a real fight. It's like, I will be heard. Like, my story will be heard. Like, I accept my story and my experience, and putting it out there. It doesn't need to be, it's not going to be silenced anymore.
Yeah. I think that is how I'm really starting to feel again. I've been through some stuff over the last couple of years. Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time before that comes out too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I won't be silenced. And even if the work that I've done has helped one person to realize that they're not alone and get some help, then it's all been worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My aim is that people don't go through what I did, don't suffer in silence for literally decades.
Wow. Yeah. Really powerful. Obviously, the being in a group space and sharing really reduced the shame. And I can hear from what you're sharing with us, like how influential that was for you in recovery. You also had quite a lot of other treatment. Like, you had, it was like workshops you had, didn't you? And then you had one-to-one therapy, which is incredible that you got all of this support on the NHS, because there's so many people out there who would just sat on waiting lists. What would you say that, like, feeling there's other people who are going through the same was the most powerful thing, or was there other things from that treatment that you think was really helpful for you too?
Oh, there's so much.
Sorry, it's a big question.
Because there was a lot of light bulb moments going through. But the first session we learned about the Minnesota starvation experiment.
Yes.
Yes, and we've spoken about this on an episode.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the very first thing that they threw at us. And yeah, that was mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. Everything that I thought, everything that I'd learned, everything society had taught me, everything about what I thought about my weight fluctuations, all of that suddenly got turned on its head. And I think there was just that crack or shift or whatever you want to call it, right from that very first session. And then they turned around and said, you've got to eat 6 times a day.
Like the cognitive understanding, and then there's the actual doing.
The
It's like, oh,
actual
okay, that's
doing.
scary.
That's how it went. It was challenging. It was difficult, but we were there supporting each other, and we were all going through it together. And if we'd had a difficult week, we could share it. And if somebody had a good week, they could share that and say what made it a little bit easier for them. And that really helped. But there were like questions like, what does a normal meal look like?
Yeah.
We just didn't know.
You just don't know how to eat anymore. What was normal eating?
Yeah.
If it exists, but
Normal's different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
What is a snack? What is a meal? How much do
Mm-hmm.
you expect us to eat? What does that look like? None of us knew the absolute basics of what this would look like.
Yeah. Was that quite? Oh, sorry, we're both quite excited there.
I think you're probably going to say a similar thing to what I'm going to say.
Sometimes you say that and I don't. Well, we'll go for it and we'll see. Because I was going to ask, was that quite prescriptive in the way they did that? Or was it more like intuitive in you figuring out what's your normal, which I know is probably quite difficult when body signals are very like dysregulated. What was their approach to that?
It was prescriptive.
Yeah.
You are going to eat 3 meals and 3 snacks a day.
And the portion sizes, was that prescribed by them as well? Or was it about hunger? No, that wasn't.
No. That's why there was so much discussion, I think, around, because they didn't want to get into calories and that sort of thing. So they suggested like how long it should take to eat.
Okay.
Just to try and get us into that mindset. And they would give us ideas of what might constitute a snack, but they weren't prescriptive about how much it was. Because bearing in mind that this was the first ever group, and so there were people in the group who had other health needs, and there were people in the group who had been struggling with eating for as long as I had. I wasn't the only one there who had been waiting for the diagnosis to happen. So yeah, they were deliberately vague about how the meals would look, how the snacks would look. But there was very much that a piece of fruit isn't a meal. There was enough information that you could get an idea, and then through trial and error, will be able to work out how much was enough to stop you feeling like you needed to binge at the end of the day because of restriction.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was very strange for us because it just turned everything on its head. It was like, okay, I'm here because I eat too much. In our heads, that was, I'm here because I eat too much. And then they're telling us we've got to eat more than we're actually eating. And for me, it was substantially more because I was restricting massively at that moment in time. So yeah, it was a big shock.
Yes.
I'm thinking
How did you
about
find the...
Sorry,
How are we doing it again? You go this time, Katie. Your turn
we
this
just
time.
can't get enough of you, Sharon. That's why.
Just I can always come back. It's not a problem.
Oh my God, I'd love a part two.
We're going to need a part two. Because when you were talking about it, I'm thinking about how I would have felt. And I think I would have had conflicting parts. I think I would have had a part of me that would have felt this is quite freeing. I can eat. Thank goodness I can eat. But also another part that would have found it very anxiety inducing. And I need you to tell me exactly what I need to eat because this is a minefield. Like, how do I even navigate it? I'm wondering where you sat on that scale in the beginning with this approach.
Absolutely horrified. If you look at my Instagram, you will see the amount of memes about what do you mean I've got to eat breakfast every day for the rest of my life. I was never a breakfast person, even as a child.
I'm not a breakfast person still.
Yeah. Still struggle with eating breakfast.
Yeah.
It was horrifying on an emotional level. It was also extremely difficult to do physically.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because my body was not used to having any nutrition in it before about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Of course.
Yeah, so actually digestively, that was quite tough. I guess having fiber and things like that, that would have been hard on your body to adjust to having that and breaking that down.
Yeah. It really was quite a difficult thing to do. And even now, I still struggle with breakfast. I do still have to force myself to eat breakfast. And I think that's just the way my body is. I'm just not somebody who likes to eat when I wake up. But I know that it's really important because if I don't, I'll start restricting and I'll delay eating. And that's when the issues
It's a slippery
start.
slope, isn't it? Yeah.
With me, that's always the first sign.
Yeah.
Go, Rebecca.
I was going to say, I'm not a breakfast person either. I find my body doesn't want to eat as soon as I wake up. The kind of foods I like to eat for breakfast are not breakfasty meals. And Katie thinks it's horrifying, but I'll have a sandwich for breakfast because
Me too. Yeah.
And for me,
I used to live in Central Europe. Bread and cheese for breakfast.
Yeah.
Egg and ham.
That's true.
Completely normal breakfast.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I had a sandwich for breakfast today. I literally had a cheese sandwich for my breakfast.
Yeah, I love a cheese sandwich for breakfast.
And it's more about eating than what you're eating, isn't it?
Yeah. And for me, when I was in like the real active part of recovery, doing the kind of, for me, it was like 3 meals and 3 snacks a day and having all those anchor meals. I did eat pretty much as soon as I woke up to get that regularity. Now, later down in my recovery, I do wait a little bit because I've noticed I just generally feel physically better if I wait a little bit before I eat my breakfast. But I wouldn't have been able to have done that when I was in the earlier stages of recovery because that would have felt like I was depriving my body. It would have felt restrictive. Now it doesn't. So I think these things can change a little bit throughout recovery depending on what's going on for you in your biology and also mentally where you're at. The question I had, which I was going to ask, was around the guidance of you can times for how long it would take to eat, because I felt conflicted about this because I can see actually how that might be quite a helpful tool. But I also was thinking back to me and maybe how I would have interpreted that. I might have been like, okay, this is my window to get as much food in as I possibly can, almost like binge within that window. Or on the flip side, if I was feeling in a restrictive mindset, to have eaten slowly to drag it out, to eat less within that time. So I'm curious, how did you find like that kind of guidance around a time window? Was it helpful for you, or how did it feel?
I'm not sure if it was helpful for me so much, but I think that other people in the group did find it helpful.
Yeah.
For me, I was just struggling with the sheer amount of time in a day I was supposed to eat.
Yeah.
That I remember that was my biggest, and it was the biggest thing that I struggled with, trying to fit all of those eating times into my day. Doing the busy job that I did was really a struggle. And if I didn't plan ahead, if I was out in my car working remotely that day, if I didn't have anything in my bag to eat, if I hadn't prepared that, that was a real struggle for me, because that would mean going into a supermarket. And supermarkets are dangerous and scary places when you have an eating disorder and when you're in eating disorder recovery. We all know that. And I would just go in over lunchtime. I would look at all of the options. I would get overwhelmed. And then I would just walk out without anything and miss the meal. So I knew that I had to start planning. And that was the big thing for me. If I planned beforehand what I was going to do at each of those times, it was okay. But if I was busy and stressed and I hadn't planned, I really had massive difficulty sticking to that plan. The overwhelm just got too much.
I think that speaks to navigating recovery and the learning experience that it is, and that you really just, you have to go through it and have the ups and the downs to gain information, to realize, okay, I'm learning that I need to plan, because if I'm not doing that, I'm putting myself in a position where I'm quite vulnerable, and that's not helping me. But of course, you don't know that till you do it.
Yeah, and that's very much what recovery is, isn't it? It's trial and error, learning yourself, learning who you are, learning what hunger feels like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learning what normal fullness feels like, as opposed to the over fullness pain that you get after a binge. Learning what they feel like in your body, because you forget, don't you? Or you just don't listen to your body at all, so you don't even notice it.
There's such a disconnect, isn't there? You're really trying to repair that.
Yeah. What it's making me think about is that balance with having structure and planning, and then also having that room for more of the experimental things as well. Experimenting with what hunger and fullness feels like, and that intuitive eating kind of side of things. But that can be really quite hard to do until you've got those regular meals put in place, which is more structured, and you've started to stabilize your body a little bit. So I think this conversation for me is highlighting anyway how the two are important in their own different ways and how they work together.
Yeah, I think so. For me, the treatment was very much the mechanical eating.
Yeah.
And at that moment in time, I definitely, from a personal experience, I needed that mechanical eating because my eating patterns were so whack. And they had been for so many years that I had no idea what a person ate like. But later on, after my treatment, was when I started learning about intuitive eating. And because I'd got that foundation and that basis, and I'd done some work on some of the issues that caused the eating disorder, once I had all that behind me and to fall back on, that's when the intuitive eating became a massively helpful tool for me.
Yeah.
In learning how I was going to eat going forwards in my life and how I was going to stay healthy and eating disorder free. But that was a whole other journey that happened after the NHS treatment that I had. And I couldn't have done that without the treatment and the mechanical eating and the therapy.
Yeah. I'm very aware of the time that we'll probably have to wrap up soon. So maybe we can do a part 2 around the whole intuitive eating side of things with you. But I was just bringing back to one of the things we said we wanted to focus on in this episode of talking about the different lived experiences between being in a straight size body and like in a plus size body. Doing that mechanical eating and people's perception of that, and having 6 meals a day, like you say, for you felt like a lot. What I'm imagining here is if there's somebody, say somebody's in anorexia recovery and they are in a smaller body and someone is taking that approach, I imagine the way that's received by people is slightly different to someone who is in a larger body and is doing the mechanical eating. I imagine there's probably some more judgment involved in that. Did you experience that? Or was, I know you said that you were at your smallest at that point, but did you receive any kind of judgment from others?
I'm not sure that I did. I was surrounded by good people. By the time I started gaining the weight,
Yeah.
the people around me who I saw daily, they knew that I was in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that I was having to eat regularly, and they knew that was actually something that was difficult for me. So they were helpful. I didn't feel judged by them. However,
Knew it was coming.
yeah, external stuff, because a part of my eating disorder was really not liking to eat in public because of the way that I felt I would be perceived. I didn't really eat in public. If I could help it, I would avoid any occasions that were socializing around food, or I would order a salad and then go home and binge, or, that when you are in public as a fat person and you are eating in public, or when I was out in public and I was eating in public, what is in your head is those newsreels about obesity, the headless fat people, the fat people eating junk food in the streets, the images.
Yeah. Like you're saying that you were hyper conscious of being perceived that way. So your choices of what you ate were consciously trying to not perpetuate that image, not the image that other people would think.
Yeah, there's this need to be seen as a good fatty, in quotation marks. And a good fatty is always trying to lose weight. A good fatty only eats diet foods. Good fatty certainly doesn't binge behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't happen to me so much, because at that time I was surrounding myself with good people, for all of my life up until that point, any eating in public in front of people, and that included in front of my own family, was any choice of food was made in that knowledge that I may be judged if I chose what I actually wanted to eat rather than what people perceive fat people should eat.
Yeah.
So it went beyond that whole recovery.
Yeah.
And it's a whole wider societal thing that probably most people in a bigger body will tell you, that if you're eating in public, there is a chance you will get judged by complete strangers.
Like by being in a fat body, you are just open for scrutiny. It's acceptable. And it's only acceptable to be in a fat body as long as you're trying to show that you're not trying to be in a fat body. And that must be exhausting as well, to have that hyper vigilance around what are people going to think, and is someone looking at what I'm eating, how are they judging me? I imagine that really wears you down all the time.
It does. It really does. It is exhausting. And it's even worse at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that we're going back to the 2000s.
It's like all the hard work is
Mm.
just, it means nothing. We're falling back. It's infuriating.
I think a lot of people in this field are feeling that, oh, the hard work we thought we were achieving is, we've got to fight even harder now.
Yeah. And I have to admit that it has played with my head.
Yeah.
It is very much. I know that if I try doing that, I will get an eating disorder again. I know that I can't use those injections because I screwed up my gallbladder in the bulimia years. And but it plays with your mind because for a while there, it felt like it might be okay. And
Yeah.
people who look like me might not have to deal with all that crap. And now it's worse than before.
It is, yeah.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that even though now you have gone through recovery and you're not binging and there's definitely more like acceptance of your body and the size it is, you still feel that. You still feel that pressure from society, and it's still something that you do carry with you. Is that right? Is that
Oh,
how it
very
feels?
much so. I still dread going to the doctors. But when in recovery, most of my weight stigma that I've received has been from medical professionals. So I avoid going to doctors because I know that the subject's going to come up now. If it didn't before, or I worry that it will. And yeah, it's just, I, it's just really not a great time for anybody in anybody.
Yeah.
It's not a great time when you see what Hollywood stars are doing to themselves, are doing to their faces, are doing to their bodies. It's not a great time. But when you are in a more marginalized body, on top of that, it's demoralizing, and it requires a lot of self-talk to say, hey, don't you go there. You're not going back there.
Yeah. I was going to ask,
Self-
what helps you? What helps you with that? Keeping that sense of like connection to your body and trust in your body and that fierceness that you have. You say, I'm not going to be silenced. This is me. I'm going to show up as I am. Like, what helps you keep connected to that?
It's that knowledge that actually my body isn't the most important thing about me. What I believed all those years wasn't true. I am not my body. My body is fat. My body doesn't work properly. My body hurts all the time. I have chronic illness. I have fibromyalgia. So it's not it's not a nice body to have, but that's just one bit of me. And there's the other part of me who is this activist, I suppose, who cares for their friends and their family, who has strong morals, and who, according to my niece, gives the best hugs on the planet.
No,
I have no doubt.
And all of that is way more important than what my body looks like and what it can physically do on a bad day. That doesn't take away from what's really important about me.
what I really love that you said there is you haven't denied how you feel about your body or some of the difficulties that there may be about living in your body. You're like, I can still feel that. I'm not going to deny it. And these things. Because I think sometimes it's like that powerful exercise of just a simple sentence of, I feel this, and then following it with something positive, because you're not trying to deny whatever challenging feelings you might have. You're still validating them. Because I think when we start to deny them and push them aside, we can get into a difficult place. You're acknowledging them and you're still highlighting all the other great things that are about you, that are beyond your body. And I really like that you're holding those two things together.
I think it's so important. It really is. There's the whole body positivity movement. It just seems like you have to love your body. You don't have to love your body. My body's shit. I could place it in a heartbeat if I could. I want one that works. I want one that doesn't hurt. But that doesn't mean that I have to hate it. And that doesn't mean that I can't respect it and nourish it and move it when it's able to move.
Yeah. And there's something for me that feels, everyone has their different things. If body positivity's work for someone, and then that's great. I'm all here for that. But for me, that kind of feeling of, I feel like this and I'm still going to respect it. I'm still going to nourish it. For me, feels more solid and sustainable and accessible as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That feels like no matter what sort of day I'm having, that's always available to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing.
Very much. Even the thinnest, most beautiful people in the world, they don't love their body every day.
Yeah.
And I think it's unrealistic to expect people to.
Yeah.
And if you can feel like that the majority of the days, then that's fantastic. But I suppose maybe I'm just a little bit more realistic because of my situation. And being pretty neutral about it and respecting it is what works for me. And it is achievable, and it's achievable even in a body that society doesn't like, and that a body that society doesn't deem as valuable. When you look at all of the disability stuff that's been in the press recently, I am on a disability benefit. So even with all of those challenges, that is realistic, and that's something that I'm able to live by in recovery. And I'm hoping that helps other people who are in a similar situation, that it's still possible. It's still possible. No matter what you look like, no matter what your body can or can't do, it's still possible.
I have to say, Sharon, you've been an absolute delight.
Yeah. I was
Really,
like, that feels like a perfect ending.
Isn't it? Although we could probably do another, we would end up keep talking, actually. I think this has just been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. If you've listened to the podcast, you'll know that something that's valuable to me is like vulnerability and being able to connect with people on a deep, raw level. And you've really shown up like that today. And I just thank you so much for it, because it's something I seek, and I love it so much. So thank you.
Thank you both. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'd be very happy to do a pod. I really enjoyed the conversation today. Really enjoyed it.
I have.
You.
It's been honestly such a privilege to speak to you and hear your experiences. And I really, to echo what Katie says, feel like you've really embraced that heartfelt vulnerability of the podcast. And I think our listeners will get so much out of hearing your experiences. Anyone who's listening who has got something out of this, please reach out to us, or Sharon will put, her details in our show notes as well if you want to connect with her. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.